Social and trade union movements in Bolivia continue mobilizations as part of indefinite general strike following the postponement of elections. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andy Holness announced September 3 as the new date for the new government's election. Nigerian authorities have extended a state of emergency to 2 additional prefectures following an attack on a group of French workers on Sunday. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmero, and we begin in Bolivia, where social and trade union movements continue mobilizations as part of a general strike following the postponement of general elections. The protests, including marches, rallies, and roadblocks, have been ongoing for 9 days. Protesters are calling for the resignation of the de facto government of Janine Áñez, while rejecting the threats issued by authorities to clear from the streets. The movement is calling for the election to be held as previously agreed on September 6, after the Electoral Tribunal postponed the vote to October 16th. The move was seen as yet another attempt by the de facto regime to cling on to power.
We are coming to block roads. They don't give us anything here. This de facto government repressed us last night. It has launched tear gas, together with the motorcycle gangs. What does this woman want? We have already told her, the entire Bolivian people, to leave, to step down. She doesn't resign, but has bought tear gas, but nothing to economize Bolivia. She just wants to steal our lithium. There is no longer any gas. What will become of us? If she had even a little shame, she would step down. She makes Bolivia look bad. We don't want her. We want to denounce from El Alto to the whole world that they are starving us to death, that the government minister threatened us with enough bullets for 6 months. He said that he has purchased tear gas, pellets, military weapons in order to repress the Bolivian people for 6 months. There are no medical supplies, no biosecurity materials, no ventilators. They are stealing the money for the ventilators. We are blocking roads because we want free education for our children. We want health services for our family. We want stability. We want work in our country.
The former director of Mexico state-owned company, Emilio Lozoya, testified that former Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto and his former finance secretary accepted bribes of at least $4 million from Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht to finance the 2012 presidential campaign. Mexican Attorney General Alejandro Gertz Manero noted that the former Pemex director had presented 4 witnesses to support his allegations against Peña Nieto and Luis Videgaray, as well as documents and a video, which will be included in the case file. According to Lozoya, the former president not only employed the foreign political advisors for his presidential campaign, but also used over $5 million of the federal government budget to buy off 5 Mexican senators and a lawmaker who were asked to support in the energy platform plan in Congress, as well as the privatization of the industry.
And the man who was later president and his finance secretary are the people that this individual, who is filling the complaint, points to as those who ordered that this money be delivered to several foreign electoral advisors who collaborated with and worked in the campaign of these 2 individuals.
And Colombia's National Electoral Council has launched an official investigation into the funding of President Iván Duque's 2018 presidential campaign. The preliminary investigation will also look into President Duque's campaign manager, Luis Guillermo Echaverri Vélez, and the Democratic Center Party. The move comes after several complaints regarding violations of electoral campaign fund regulations, including those revealed in the ongoing case against former President Álvaro Uribe. The council is investigating accusations that Venezuelan businessman Osvaldo Cisneros gave $300,000 in financial support to Duque's campaign, as well as accusations of vote buying. Electoral law prohibits foreign donations to campaigns. The Democratic Center will be required to submit accounts from the Duque campaign to the investigating commission so it can determine the origin and amount of financial contributions. Analysts have warned that Colombian President Iván Duque's position on the case against Senator and former President Álvaro Uribe has overstepped the limits of the executive powers. Our correspondent Hernan Tobar has the story.
The Supreme Court order of putting Uribe under house arrest has sparked criticism from the executive and deepens the polarization of the already divided Colombian society.
I am calling for a great national reflection. What am I asking for? Let's forget about this specific case. Let's talk about the citizens' rights to the presumption of innocence. And this presumption of innocence should guarantee the right to defend himself while being free. I have always believed this.
Political activists consider Duque's position is not part of his role. They believe that it becomes a pressure on the judges of the Supreme Court of Justice, and they will take legal actions ahead of any potential bias on this case.
President Duque has been making statements that limits the judiciary independence. He instructs the court on how it should act, what should be the purpose of its actions, and that interference, because it is indeed an interference, of the independence of the powers of the judiciary violates the balance among the public powers. We believe this should have an international scope, so that the world knows that a violation of a fundamental principle of the rule of law is happening in Colombia. That is why we are considering what will be the international organization that we will involve in this matter in the following days.
Analysts point out that the executive and the official Democratic Center Party's stance seeks to impose a media and political narrative in which Uribe is seen as an alleged victim.
Turning the court's decision into a media campaign about the scope of its decisions may take into account a comprehensive research process, and in which there is no evidence of any lack of impartiality, constitutes an inadmissible aggression to the rule of law. What they are trying to do is to impose an agenda in which Uribe is a victim of political persecution. They want to question the judiciary branch, the standing of the court, because they are aware of the fact that they will accomplish nothing if they do follow the rule of law, and that is why they are betting all to the political side of this case.
In this context, the defense of Senator Uribe has requested to know more of the case file, although analysts claim that this is not possible because what they want is to contaminate the action of the judges with undue pressures or with undue procedures outside the Constitution. They strongly believe that this constitutes a mechanism to attack the authority of the Supreme Court of Justice.
Jamaica's Prime Minister Andy Holness announced the new dates for the nomination process and the elections for the next government.
And two, Tuesday, the 18th day of August 2020 is appointed as nomination day. This notice has been gazetted today, Tuesday, the 11th day of August 2020. Consequently, the date fixed for the taking of the polls, that is the general elections for the year 2020, is therefore Thursday, September the 3rd, 2020. Mr. Speaker, we will be quick. We will be efficient.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the opposition United National Congress Party has called for a recount of votes in 5 electoral districts, questioning any official preliminary statements of results from the Elections on Boundary Commission. The party leadership announced that the commission is facilitating the recounts in the disputed electoral districts. The ruling People's National Movement, led by Prime Minister Keith Rowley, declared itself the winner of the general elections following the preliminary results issued by the electoral body. And we'll be right back after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Shortly after the Russian release of their COVID-19 medicine, the United States President Donald Trump announced this Tuesday a $1.5 billion contract for the manufacture of 100 million doses of experimental vaccine manufactured by the U.S. laboratory Moderna. Trump stated that they are ready to produce 100 million doses as soon as the shots are approved. This will be the sixth contract in this type made between the U.S. government and the pharmaceutical area. U.S. government has invested $2.480 billion in Moderna. No other company has ever received so much money from Washington. The agreement now boosts U.S. public investment in Moderna, a biotechnology company founded less than a decade ago and one that has never created a vaccine before. U.S. presidential hopeful Joe Biden on Tuesday named Kamala Harris, a black senator from California, as his running mate for vice president. Biden announced the decision on Twitter, describing Harris as a fearless fighter for the little guy and one of the country's finest public servants. The move capped a months-long search for a Democratic partner to challenge President Donald Trump in November. Biden's team reported that the two Democrats will deliver remarks on Wednesday in Wilmington, Delaware, as they kick off their election campaign. Harris is the first African-American and South Asian American woman to be chosen as the running mate of a major U.S. party's presidential candidate. And following the announcement of her selection, Senator Kamala Harris tweeted that she was honored to Joe Biden, the Democratic Party's nominee for vice president, adding she will do what it takes to secure a victory. Harris, age 55, was elected to the Senate in 2016 after serving as California's Attorney General. She had hoped to stand against Biden for the Democratic presidential nomination, but withdrew from the race before voting began, as she struggled to raise the money for her campaign. And President Donald Trump has stated he was a little surprised that his Democratic rival Joe Biden selected Kamala Harris as his running mate. Trump told reporters at a White House briefing that Harris was very disrespectful to Joe Biden during the Democratic primaries. Trump attempted to paint Harris as too far left, saying she wants to raise taxes, slash funds for the military, and ban fracking. However, just a month ago, Trump said Harris would be a fine choice for vice president.
Plus, she was very, very nasty to one of the reasons that surprised me. She was probably nastier than even Pocahontas to Joe Biden. She was very disrespectful to Joe Biden, and it's hard to pick somebody that's that disrespectful. When she said things during the debates, during the Democrat primary debates, that were horrible about Sleepy Joe, and I would think that he wouldn't have picked.
Venezuela's integral aerospace defense system detected and neutralized a drug smuggling aircraft that illegally entered the country's western airspace this Tuesday. The chief of the General Staff of the National Bolivian Armed Forces of Venezuela Command, General-in-Chief Jesus Suarez Chorio, informed in his Twitter account that the aircraft illegally flew over the south of Lake Maracaibo and was shot down. He added that it intended to land on a clandestine airstrip used for drug trafficking operations on the border with Colombia. Vice President of Communication of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, reported the new cases of contagion by COVID-19.
In the last 24 hours, Venezuela must report today, August 11, 2020, a total of 1,008 cases of community transmission. Of those 1,008 cases of community transmission, 25%, or 253 cases, correspond to the capital of the Republic, the Capital District.
Authorities in New Zealand have reinforced COVID-19 restrictions in the northern city of Auckland, while moving the rest of the country to alert level 2 after 4 new coronavirus cases from an unknown source were reported on Tuesday.
The fact that we have some contact with the family that have been identified as having COVID, having travelled to another region, reinforces why the whole country has moved to alert level 2. And that is that, of course, everyone across the country outside of Auckland, we're asking for social distancing, we're asking for those limits on mass gatherings again.
And we have more news coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Nigerian authorities extended a state of emergency in the Tijaberi region to 2 additional prefectures following an attack on a group of French workers' aid on Sunday. The decision was adopted by the National Security Council, which previously declared the state of emergency in western and northern parts of the region. Emergency measures will now apply to the prefectures of Koyo, where the attack occurred, and Valle Yara, while security forces are authorized to conduct additional anti-terrorism operations. Tourist groups such as Nusrat al-Islam, the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, and Ansar ul-Islam have increased their operations in Niger's Tijaberi region, while expanding across the borders with Mali and Burkina Faso. French President Emmanuel Macron announced his decision to reinforce security measures for French nationals in the Sahel region on Twitter this Tuesday, following the deadly attack in Niger. Macron stressed that efforts will continue to eradicate terrorist groups operated in the area, with increased support from France's partners. Nigerian authorities confirmed 423 new COVID-19 cases on Tuesday, bringing the total number to over 47,000. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control reported that the new cases were spread across 21 states and the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. Meanwhile, more than 33,000 patients have recovered from the virus, while 956 people have lost their lives to COVID-19. Nigeria's largest city, Lagos, continues to be the epicenter of the outbreak, reporting 117 of new cases. Congolese authorities have announced the reopening of air borders starting August 24th as the country seeks to recover from the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The announcement was made by the National Coordination Board on COVID-19 pandemic response. Meanwhile, Congolese authorities have gradually lifted restrictions, including the reopening of shops, banks, restaurants, bars, and schools and universities. Health authorities have reported over 3,700 COVID-19 cases and a death toll of 60. Opposition figures in the Ivory Coast continue to protest President Alassane Ouattara's decision to stand for re-election in October.
It is worth recalling that the candidacy of Mr. Alassane Ouattara is unconstitutional. As we all know, moreover, his candidacy violates the Ivorian constitution, at least in spirit, as formulated by the authors of that text. The candidacy of Mr. Alassane Ouattara is not admissible. That's what it should be and nothing else. A head of a state cannot say something and then retract it, especially in front of the nation. In the wake of the consolidation of peace in this nation that has suffered too much and no longer wants to suffer, might he release the military and civilian prisoners of the post-electoral crisis?
And thousands marched in Lebanon's capital Beirut on Tuesday to pay tribute to the victims of the devastating blast that took place last week. According to local authorities, the blast killed over 200 people and injured some 7,000, while more than 300,000 residents were made homeless. A moment of silence was observed at 15:09 local time this Tuesday to pay tribute to the victims, while hundreds of protesters once again stormed the parliament building, chanting slogans against the political elite. Although Lebanese Prime Minister Hassan Diab announced his government's resignation on Monday, many Lebanese are demanding the formation of an independent cabinet not supported by any of the traditional political parties, accused of mismanaging the country's affairs.
Still in shock, just like on the day it happened. We still can't believe what happened. We came today to light a candle and lay a flower to pay tribute to those who died here, Hopefully, this will serve as a lesson to the state for it to take its responsibilities for once in his life. It's a crime that people in the prime of their lives died because of a state that does not take its responsibilities, a state that lies, a criminal state that refuses to live. Every day that passes and this state still exists, we feel just how much we are being wrong, how broken we are. They keep committing crimes against us, and we're still standing, and there's nothing we can do. All I want to say today is that inside of me and inside of many young people here, there is anger, sadness, and hatred.
And as fury over the blasts in Beirut and the ongoing economic crisis in Lebanon grows, President Michel Aoun asked the government to stay in a caretaker capacity until a new cabinet is formed. Several reports have emerged revealing that authorities were warned about the storage of explosive materials in Beirut's port before last week's deadly explosion. As the recovery efforts continue, authorities announced that the blast was fueled by more than 2,000 tons of ammonium nitrate that had been stored at the port for several years. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Laura Palmero. Thank you for watching.